going to record. And one of the things I was thinking that I wanted to, anyway, before I start asking you questions, it might be nice to actually say who you are, mightn't it?
Oh, yeah, go on.
So, I've decided that with it being June, and that's the month of my birth, that I wanted to interview somebody who was around at that time to find out a bit more about it. So Mr. Billy Wynn, i.e. Sheryl's dad, is here to answer some questions about birth from his perspective. And, you know, it would be nice, wouldn't it, if we could ask my mum as well. But she's not here to do that. So I'm afraid it falls to you, Dad. We're going to have to test your memory now.
Best of luck.
What I wanted to ask you first of all, because you've got like 1 million brothers and sisters. You've got 6 brothers and sisters, and or grew up with 6 brothers and sisters. So there were lots of babies. You
Five brothers and 4 sisters. That's 9 of us.
That's 9, yeah. What? I'm getting mixed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gave me another brother and took one of my sisters away. You said 6 and 3.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let you off.
Sorry. So loads of them anyway.
Yeah.
So you, as the oldest, you must have just had babies there all of the time. Do you remember
Everywhere, yeah.
What was that like for you as you grew up?
Always the last in the bathwater, in the tin bath, in front of the fire. I got the cold water with everybody else's urine in it. Nice.
And I've got 2 boys who like to wee on each other in the bath, so
yeah.
I can't even imagine what that was like.
It was always cold when I got in the water.
Oh, Dad.
The last one in.
You're going to make me cry. So what did you think about birth when you were younger? Like, what did you just think? Was it just an easy thing then, or was it something that you saw your mum endure, like from your perspective?
It never seemed to bother me, mum, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was born in hospital, but Jimmy, David, Linda, Debbie, Stephen, they were all born at home.
Right.
And then the twins and Gary, they were born in hospital.
Okay.
Was
that just because of the time, like the times had changed and hospital birth was normal, or what?
Yeah. Home birth was normal in them days.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing that sometimes people struggle to understand when I'm teaching them as well, that we kind of see hospital birth as normal now, many people do, but go back just a few decades and home birth was normal and was never a problem either, was quite straightforward in lots of ways. Yeah. And we've lost a lot of that now. So were you ever around when any of the babies were born?
Oh, yeah.
What do you remember seeing anything, or?
No. I was just in the house.
Yeah.
I wasn't in the room where my mum was actually having the baby.
Mm.
But
did you see them like soon after?
Oh yeah, straight away, yeah. Always be one of my mum's sisters, because she was the youngest of 14.
Wow.
Yeah. So there was always one of her sisters around to help with the birth.
Yeah. And did she have a midwife as well? Did a midwife come to the house?
Not that I can remember. There must have been someone somewhere, but...
Might have been.
Yeah.
So it was quite a family affair?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
It was always aunties around.
Yeah. I can't believe I've never asked you about this before. Like, it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
But I suppose a lot of people don't have these conversations, do they? And that's why we don't learn stuff. So we don't learn stuff to pass on to the next generation anymore. Whereas you had, your mum had her brothers and sisters and was supported by kind of people who've done this before. quite
Yeah.
often when people are doing this now, they're doing it on their own because they've not got any of that shared knowledge.
Yeah, it was just like a thing, a commonplace of occurred down there. Everyone was having babies, I suppose, just
Yeah.
after the war.
Yeah. So when you and my mum were expecting me, because I was the first one,
Yeah.
what was in your mind about what birth was going to be like? But had you even thought about it?
I hadn't even thought about it, love, because it'd always been. I've only ever seen my mum.
Yeah.
Having
She made it look
children,
so
know what I mean?
easy.
And that was just. It was one of them things.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, I've got another brother or I've got another sister.
Like shell and peas.
Yeah.
Wow. So what do you remember of the time before I was born? Like, did you have conversations with my mum about it, or was it just like ignored until the day I came?
Just like, do you want to know if it's going to be a boy or a girl? And the answer was, for both of us, was no. We didn't
Yeah.
want to know. We wanted a surprise, and look what we got.
Right. Yeah, you were surprised, very much so. I didn't realise that you'd had the option then as well, because I just assumed that people didn't find out in those days. So
No, we could have found out.
Found out
Yeah.
by the scan.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that must have been quite a new thing then.
Maybe so, but you were our first, so we had nothing
Didn't know.
to guide it by.
So just to make the point of actually how many years that was ago that I'm asking you to remember. I'm about to turn 38 in a week or so.
Best of luck. I can't remember what I had for my breakfast this morning.
Me neither. And I mean, I still can't even believe that when I say that out loud, because I don't feel like that much time has passed. So it must feel even stranger for you.
Yeah, well, what I can remember about your birth is like your mum going into labour. I don't know whether it was a Thursday or a Friday.
I think I was born on a Friday.
Friday, well, it must have been a Friday. I took your mum to the hospital and I parked in a legal place to get your mum into the hospital. Went upstairs to see the receptionist in Aintree Hospital, the maternity ward, and they rushed your mum in, and I followed right in behind. I was actually holding your mum's arm, and not an arm, holding her hand when she gave birth to you. But before she gave birth to you, she said, "Never again, Billy."
And then she did it.
Yeah,
did it
she
again.
did it, and then after that,
yeah,
she had a grin on her like a Cheshire cat.
Oh. So how long was it then? How long was she in labour?
About 5 hours.
That's really fast for a first time labour.
Yeah. It was the same with Will, I think. That was fast.
Yeah. I don't know, because I've never asked.
Yeah. And Suzanne, well, she was caesarean. Your mother's waters broke when she was cleaning the pelmet down the front room.
Yeah.
Standing on the chair.
And she was really early, wasn't she?
Yeah.
So she was probably a bit small. They were probably worried about her being in the right position. So
yeah.
Did the caesarean.
Yeah.
So do you remember what was the first sign of her going into labour with me?
It'd be the waters breaking.
Do you remember that happening?
Yeah.
Yeah, with me, not with Sue.
Yeah. I don't remember it with Suzanne because she was on her own.
She was on her own, yeah.
Yeah. Because we were expecting you. We weren't expecting Suzanne.
I was still a couple of weeks early, I think, wasn't I?
Only a couple of weeks, yeah.
Yeah. So, like, you were already prepared then?
Yeah.
For that happening. Yeah. So, what do you remember about the actual birth when you were in hospital? What sort of things happened during that 5 hours?
Just squeezing your mum's hand and squeezing mine more than me squeezing hers.
Yeah.
And
And did she have any pain relief?
She had an epidural, yeah.
Oh, did she? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Well, wasn't I delivered by forceps?
Yeah, you were
Yeah.
upside down, you were breached, yeah.
I was
Is that what
upside
it is?
down,
Yeah,
as in feet first, or
yeah. And they had to drag you out with forceps.
by my head?
It must have been by looking at the shape of it now. Yeah. No,
I
you
never
weren't breached.
understood this because I'm sure my mum told me that I was breech, and
Yeah,
I never understood because my understanding of breech is bottom or
upside down.
feet
Yeah,
coming
yeah,
first, but
yeah.
I think that she meant that I was facing the other direction, so
Right.
I still came head first because I remember having a conversation about our ears because she was born by
All right.
forceps too, and they wouldn't be able to use forceps to deliver a breech baby, as far as I know. That
Oh,
would
well,
be a bit more risky.
I'm only going by what your mother told me. If she
Yeah.
told you you were breached, she told me that as well.
Yeah, but I just think that she might have meant that
Yeah.
I was facing
You
the
were
other
awkward.
direction.
Put it that way.
Yeah.
You were awkward.
That's interesting though to find out that she had an epidural, because
Yeah.
was the epidural before they realised that
No,
the
no.
positioning was awkward, or was that after?
After.
Right. Okay. So, was it something that she'd said that she wanted to have?
No,
Or
she just got a little bit distressed. So
right.
the midwife just took a go on. I don't know whether she asked me or asked your mum. I don't know.
Yeah. I
But I know she had one.
You are. You
I
know.
know she had the epidural, yeah.
Yeah. And I can't believe I didn't know that.
What?
And I can't believe I didn't know that. I didn't know she had an epidural.
Yeah.
So I was born with the help of forceps.
Yeah.
And then what happened next?
I don't know. I phoned my mum.
Did you see me first, though? Had you seen me?
Oh yeah, yeah. I was there when you were born.
I know, that's what I mean. So tell me about that. What did you see, and where did I
just did
go?
a big mop of black hair.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because I remember you used to joke about whether I was actually Portuguese.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
With my black hair. And then did I get taken away, or did
Not straight
Abba
away.
right
Your mum held you for a few minutes, and then the nurse said, "Come on, let's take her and clean her up."
Right. Okay.
So they took her away then and brought her back half an hour later, all shiny in a blanket.
Oh, right.
Or in a shawl.
Yeah. And then what happened after that? Did you get left alone with me for a bit?
Yeah, we were left alone with you. I didn't stay all that long because your mum was shattered. So I must have stayed for half an hour or an hour. I think my mum and dad came up. No, it was the next day my mum and dad came up. They were the first to come up to see you.
Yeah.
So that'll be the next day. And
Right.
I just went home then and went to St. Peter and Paul's and played snooker.
You went to wet the baby's head.
Yeah.
In other words. So sometimes that can happen now, like people stay in hospital a bit longer or whatever, so they're left on their own. But more often than not, what happens is people go home the same day or later on that day or whatever.
Well, it wasn't like that back then. Your mum was in hospital for 4 or 5 days, I think.
Yeah. Did she have tearing then?
Which?
Did she have a tearing or a cut that she was healing from?
Oh, I don't know. Can't remember. Possibly, yeah, with being with the forceps.
Yeah, quite often it comes with an episiotomy.
Yeah. It's easy for you to say.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, it's just interesting, isn't it, that she was in hospital for quite a few days then.
Yeah.
Recovering. And then what was happening in terms of feeding and looking after me? What was the situation then? Because this was in the 80s. I know that perhaps earlier than that, in the 70s, and before, babies were taken away and kept separate from the mum and brought to the mum for feeding. But,
yeah, well, that's what happened. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like a nursery kind of thing.
Yeah.
So she
It
was
like
on her
a
own.
ward to the side of so the mothers could rest. I think.
Yeah.
The babies were taken away and put in the cots.
Right.
Big glass cots.
And then what happened in terms of breastfeeding in those early days?
The nurse would just bring you back into my mum, to your mum, and that had happened in bed. That she stayed in bed for that.
She didn't have to get up.
No.
How long did she breastfeed me for?
Oh, for ages. It was ages before she put you on powdered milk.
Yeah. Because I know she did eventually. I know she did.
Yeah,
At some point.
it was been a couple of months before she got powdered milk.
Yeah. So she was feeding me herself when she was in hospital.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Like, I wish I could ask her about the sort of help that she got when she was there, whether she got more help because she was in, or what. Because really, the recommendations now are for mum and baby not to be separated. It can be quite devastating to breastfeeding relationships if mum and baby are separated in the early days, especially if it's hours in between, because you're not following baby's cues then. Usually you've got to respond to your baby's cues to feed them every time they show an interest. Otherwise you don't produce enough milk and they are hungry. So that's interesting that she was able to do that under those circumstances. And then what happened on the day that I came home?
Oh, all hands were there. Ivy was there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether girls were with them. They'd have been in school, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Wendy and Susan, they'd have been in school. But Ivy was there, I think.
Yeah.
And just me, your mum.
So you go pick her up?
Yeah, I picked her up from the hospital, yeah.
And did you have a car seat?
No.
Or was that flung in the back?
You were in the back with your mother. We didn't get a car seat till we started taking you out.
Yeah, and the regulations just weren't there then either. So
no.
I've seen pictures of all sorts of weird and wonderful contraptions that were used in kind of the 60s, 70s, and 80s to hold babies in the back of cars. Nothing that we dream of putting a baby in now. Like little hammocks that you hung up.
Boxes.
So she just carried me. And you just drove us home. Well, we made it anyway, didn't we?
We made it, yeah. There's the proof there.
And then what was the first thing you did when you got in?
Oh. Well, I suppose I'd have hold of you then. Your mum would have given it to me while she went and made me a cup of tea.
Well, that's nice to know.
Yeah. But that was your mum, wasn't it? So... Yeah.
Did you have loads of visitors then?
Oh, loads of visitors. Everyone in from the street, all piling in, and not all at once. Just a couple here, a couple there.
Yeah.
Coming up, especially being for a big family as well. My brothers and sisters were coming up and having a look.
And what was I thinking about the whole situation?
Oh, you were mesmerised.
Yeah.
Yeah. You never stopped laughing. What I did notice, you didn't have any teeth.
No. I haven't even got them all now.
Oh, look.
I know. Okay. So how long was it before? So after Ed saying that she'd never again, Billy, how long was it before she was saying that she wanted to do it again?
It wouldn't be long after.
No.
We had Suzanne. Was it 2 years later? 3 years later?
There's just nearly 3 years.
Yeah.
3 years.
And then what is it between Suzanne and Will? That's 6 years?
Yeah, there's 9 years between me and Will.
Yeah, yeah.
But then you lost a baby as well in
We
between.
lost a baby in between, yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember anything about that?
Oh, that was, your mum was just devastated.
Yeah.
Just devastated.
Yeah, and I
couldn't
remember
stop
that.
it
I mean,
from-
I'd have been
Yeah,
about 7, I think, when that
yeah,
happened.
yeah,
I remember that.
yeah. She was inconsolable.
Yeah. I know that she never gave up on wanting to have another after that, and even after Will, she
Yeah,
still didn't feel done, did she?
no. But then I think nature took course then.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I remember even just in the few years before she died, she was talking about adoption, and she was
Yeah, yeah. She loved children. She loved children, yeah.
Yeah. And I think, you know, with knowing what I know now, looking back at what her experiences were when she had Suzanne in particular, and how traumatic that was, because she was basically told that Suzanne was going to die, wasn't she?
Yeah, yeah.
And to say goodbye to her because she was so early.
Yeah.
And she about 3 months early.
About 3 months early, yeah.
Yeah. So was there a change? Did you notice a change after that? Was there a change in her?
In your mum, yeah. She got a little bit moodier. She'd fly off the handle sometimes, but mostly she was okay. But she did have a moment.
Yeah. And I think it's hard when you're actually in it to see what's going on. It's easier for me now to look back at all of that, because I mean, I don't remember Suzanne being born, but I remember a lot of the years after that. And to see that there are a lot of things in the way that my mum was that represent post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's no surprise that she was traumatised by what happened to her with both Suzanne's birth, perhaps potentially even my birth after having forceps. You know, a lot of people are traumatised for much less. But it doesn't sound like that happened. Maybe that happened after Suzanne's birth. And definitely after you lost the other baby.
Yeah.
Well, plus all of the things that had already happened to her, I think, before she was a mum. You know, she'd lost her own parents, hadn't she? And like had other various things happen to her that had probably caused her to have quite a stress response to situations. So it makes sense. It makes sense to me now, looking back and seeing it as it is.
Yeah, she didn't have it easy, did she, your mum?
No, and I think she thought she should find things easier, and she did, and beat herself up about it every day. That it should be easier than this. And the thing is, that's what I see when I have conversations with new mums all of the time. Lots of us feel the same way. We should find it easier than this. It should come more naturally than this. I should be able to do this and not be too tired, or I should be able to do this and not feel so emotional. And you know, that's still happening to a lot of us. So it's really important for me in the job that I do now to make sure people talk about those things and are really honest about them early on, so that you don't end up living a lifetime where you...
I'm sure your mum would have got value out of that, having someone to talk to, because it was always put a brave face on when anyone came. You know what I mean? She was... Where I know, like, the moods were more frequent.
Yeah. Definitely. And it was one of the biggest things that I noticed when we did Party for Pauline for her birthday, when she would have been 60. And we did the memory book, and I got people to write in there, and some of those comments were just lovely. I think we all had a cry, didn't we, reading them? But a lot of them said about how she was full of the joys of spring,
Yeah.
and she brought so much happiness and
To
kindness.
everyone, yeah.
And that was true. She did all of those things, but that wasn't necessarily the same person that we saw behind closed doors when she was struggling.
Yeah.
And it's really important for people to know that we can be both sides of that, can't we? We can be all of the am I making you cry?
Stop it.
Sorry, but it doesn't make us bad people, does it? It just makes us human, that we can experience all of the different parts of being human, and that's still okay too. And how did you feel as a new dad? Did you feel like you had support for what your new role was?
No, I just went back to work.
Yeah.
That was it.
That's it. And I suppose that's what you'd seen as well, wasn't it? Like your
That's
mum
all I'd ever seen,
had babies and then looked after them when your dad worked.
Yeah.
And I think that's a difficult shift that people deal with now today as well. Like, who am I if I don't work? Because a lot of mums are working as well, and then who has the responsibility? And it's all very, very difficult to manage sometimes.
Yeah. Well, your mum went back to work, didn't she? You ended up in my mum's.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you must have found that traumatic, because the first night me and your mum went out after your birth, it must have been months and months, and we went to a party in the Merseyside Artists Club in Sheryl Road, only down the corner from my mum's, and we dropped you off. My mum said she'd look after you, and we got back about midnight, and mum says, as soon as your mother picked you up, you stopped crying. My mum says, she's been a mare. She says she definitely knows who her mother is, because she cried from the minute she left till the minute she got back.
Oh. And how old was I then? Do you remember?
You'd be about 6-7 months.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit older. A bit older.
It just shows you how strong that bond is, doesn't it? And I've been talking about that this morning with some people I've been working with, about how you can share parenting, but you can never share mothering.
Oh no.
The mother does the mothering.
Yeah.
And there's lots of things that me and Craig share, but the kids still run to me. Because I'm the mum. And that's quite hard, especially when you want to be able to focus on your own stuff and your own career as well.
Yeah.
So balance that out. And caused a lot of resentment, I think, in relationships as well, because you can't quite get to grips with how it's supposed to be and how I'm supposed to manage all of this and all these needs of everybody else, and be able to still look after myself as well. So I think she was definitely not alone in experiencing that.
Yeah. No.
Okay. Well, I know I've kept you for ages now, but is there anything else that you want to share that's come up that you've remembered?
I can't think at the minute. My baby's in the other room talking to someone on the phone.
Your youngest one.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I'll maybe ask you about Sue and Will's births as well at some point, to do it as like a mini series.
Yeah.
I've worked you hard enough for one day, I think.
I won't tell you anything about the other two then. I'll save them for them.
Yeah, we'll do them in the next episode.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to say bye so that I can just include that in the recording, and then I'll stay on to speak to you after. Okay.
Okay.
All right then. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.